You've been carrying around the same energetic blueprint for months, maybe even years. It's the same old reactive patterns, the same internal monologue playing on repeat, the same magnetic pull toward experiences that feel familiar, yet ultimately leave you feeling empty inside. But something is definitely beginning to stir now, something that runs deeper than just sheer willpower or positive thinking. You're actually starting to witness the quantum signature of transformation itself, those unmistakable frequencies that emerge when your consciousness is finally ready to collapse into a brand new reality. This isn't about simply hoping for change anymore. It's about recognizing the underlying mechanics of how your new life actually announces itself. What brought you to this very moment, watching this specific transmission? It's not just the surface-level story your mind might conjure up about algorithms or recommendations, but the deeper current that skillfully guided your attention right here. You could easily dismiss it as mere coincidence, but something deep inside you recognizes that this isn't just random chance. You're beginning to feel a sense of coherence between your internal state and what is showing up in your external world. That coherence is the very first signal that your reality matrix is in the process of reorganizing itself. Most people mistakenly imagine that transformation feels like a sudden burst of inspiration or motivation, like suddenly having crystal clear clarity about what you're supposed to do next. But anyone who's actually stood at the threshold of a genuine shift knows that it feels nothing like that. It actually feels like dissonance, like being stuck between two radio stations, picking up fragments of who you used to be and fleeting glimpses of who you're becoming, but never quite settling into either frequency. When that kind of tension arises, it's perfectly natural to question whether you're moving towards something real or simply creating internal chaos for yourself. That uncertainty isn't a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It's the signature of your consciousness expanding beyond its current configuration. Think about the last time you promised yourself a different way of being, only to find yourself right back in the same old patterns within a matter of days. Maybe you committed to responding rather than reacting, then caught yourself in the middle of the same emotional loops. Or maybe you decided to trust your intuition more, only to second-guess every single impulse. The very next morning brought the familiar frustration and that quiet voice inside asking why change always feels so impossibly hard. These cycles aren't personal failures in any way. They're the natural resistance that emerges when your consciousness tries to reorganize itself without fully understanding the quantum mechanics of transformation. What's truly fascinating is that neuroscience actually shows that the brain creates more neural static right before those breakthrough moments. It's almost as if the current system has to destabilize before a new order can possibly emerge. That uncomfortable middle ground where nothing feels certain isn't evidence that you're stuck in any way. It's proof that the field around you is becoming more fluid, more responsive to new possibilities. You're experiencing this turbulence right now because the very foundation you've been standing on is becoming quantum, shifting between probable realities until you ultimately choose which one to collapse into. Imagine someone who feels these stirrings, but immediately tries to explain them away. They notice the restlessness, the nagging sense that something needs to shift, but they convince themselves that it's just stress or overthinking. So they busy themselves with familiar distractions, returning to the same relationships, the same routines, the same old way of processing their experiences. Time keeps moving forward, but they remain stuck in the same vibrational loop. Eventually, life presents them with the same invitations for growth, often through some kind of crisis or disruption, simply because the universe never gives up on anyone's evolution. You've probably noticed this pattern in your own life's timeline. Those moments when you felt the distinct call to expand, but chose safety instead, only to find yourself facing similar challenges later on, but with even more intensity. This is where you begin to truly understand the weight of your choices. Not just the dramatic, life-altering decisions, but those quiet, seemingly insignificant moments when you either lean into the unknown or retreat back into what feels manageable. Each and every time you choose expansion over contraction, you're literally shifting your quantum field. Each time you choose familiarity over growth, you're simply reinforcing the same probability patterns. But here's what changes absolutely everything. The universe operates in much the same way as consciousness itself. infinitely patient, endlessly creative, and always presenting brand new opportunities for awakening. It doesn't punish you for past choices, and it certainly doesn't judge your resistance. It simply continues to offer invitations, each one perfectly calibrated to meet you exactly where you are in your journey. The same lesson might very well return in different forms, through relationships, work situations, health challenges, or creative blocks, but always with just the right amount of pressure needed to help you recognize what's truly yearning to evolve within you. When you begin to feel different in this moment, that's not just your imagination running wild. That's your awareness recognizing its own expansion. It's like standing in a room you've occupied for years and suddenly noticing that the walls aren't quite as solid as they originally appeared. You don't need to see the entire blueprint of what's coming to know that something fundamental is shifting deep inside. The very recognition itself is the beginning of the transformation. Awareness of the possibility is the first quantum leap. This brings us to something that most people never actually discover about how transformation truly works. Once your consciousness begins to reorganize, the field around you starts reflecting that shift right back to you through what appears to be external confirmation. But these aren't just separate events happening to you. They're your own expanded awareness, recognizing itself in the quantum field of experience. Have you ever noticed how certain concepts or phrases just start showing up everywhere once you're ready to truly understand them? Maybe you overhear someone casually talking about trusting the process while standing in line at the grocery store. Then you see the very same phrase in a book that randomly falls open to that exact page, followed by a podcast episode that explores that very same theme. Initially, this might seem like simple selective attention. You're noticing what was always there because you're now actively paying attention. But what if it's more than just that? What if your readiness to receive certain information actually influences what information appears in your own personal field? Quantum physics suggests that the observer doesn't just passively witness reality. The observer actively participates in creating what ultimately becomes observable. When your consciousness expands to include new possibilities, the field of experience begins reflecting those possibilities right back to you. These aren't signs being sent from somewhere outside of yourself. They're reflections of your own quantum coherence, moments when your inner state and your outer experience achieve a state of true resonance. Most of us have been trained to dismiss these kinds of synchronicities as mere wishful thinking or just plain coincidence. We've learned to only trust what we can verify through linear cause and effect. But how many times have you experienced 3 or 4 seemingly unrelated events, all pointing toward the very same insight about relationships, creativity, or your overall life direction, and felt that unmistakable shift deep in your chest? That shift is your consciousness recognizing its own reflection in the quantum field. Even when your rational mind tries to explain it away, something deeper inside knows that you're witnessing the very mechanics of how awareness shapes our experience. Picture this scenario. You wake up with an unusual sense of spaciousness, feeling somehow more present than usual. During your regular morning routine, you notice how automatic most of your movements have become, and you find yourself slowing down, actually savoring the taste of your coffee. Later on, while reading something completely unrelated, you encounter a passage about the power of mindful presence. That evening, a friend mentions how they've been practicing meditation and asks if you've ever tried it. 3 completely different contexts, but they're all inviting you toward the same exploration of conscious awareness. This is how consciousness speaks to itself, through the field of experience, not through dramatic revelations or mystical visions, but through gentle, persistent nudges that create a discernible pattern of coherence. Scientists often call this phenomenon pattern recognition, but spiritual traditions understand it as the intelligence of the universe communicating through the language of synchronicity. Both perspectives point to the same fundamental truth. When you're truly ready to evolve, the field around you begins reflecting that readiness right back to you in ways that are practically impossible to ignore. There's an even deeper layer to all of this that most people tend to miss. These synchronicities aren't just confirmations that you're moving in the right direction. They're also tests of whether you'll actually trust what you're experiencing enough to take action on it. Every repeated message, Every meaningful coincidence, every single moment when the universe seems to wink at you, is also an invitation to choose trust over doubt, expansion over safety, the unknown over the familiar. This is where your true power becomes undeniable. The very fact that you're present for this transmission right now means that you're already participating in the quantum field of transformation. Your consciousness has become coherent enough to recognize these concepts, not as foreign ideas, but as remembrances of what you already know at the deepest level of your being. You're not necessarily learning something new. You're simply remembering how to read the language that your own awareness speaks. Let that thought settle into your understanding for just a moment. You are not separate from the intelligence that creates meaningful coincidences. You are that intelligence recognizing itself through the medium of human experience. When you see patterns emerging in your life, you're not discovering something outside of yourself. You're witnessing your own expanded consciousness being reflected in the quantum field of possibility. But here's where the entire process becomes even more precise. For these new probability patterns to stabilize into a consistent experience, there has to be space for them to actually take root. The universe can mirror your expanded awareness back to you continuously. But if your life is still organized around old patterns, the same reactive relationships, the same limiting beliefs about what's truly possible, the same daily routines that keep you unconscious, there's simply no space for the new to establish itself. This is where transformation asks something of you that self-help rarely even mentions. It's not just about adding new practices or positive thoughts to your life. It's about actively creating space by consciously releasing what no longer serves your evolution. And that release often feels counterintuitive because it inevitably means letting go of things that feel safe, even when they're slowly draining your life force. Most people underestimate just how much courage real transformation actually requires, not just the dramatic courage of making big life changes, but the quiet courage of releasing the familiar stories you keep telling yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. Everyone seems to celebrate the idea of becoming someone new, but very few talk about the sacred work of composting who you used to be. A seed doesn't grow by simply adding more soil on top of itself. It grows by allowing the shell that once protected it to dissolve so that new life can finally emerge. Reflect on this for a moment. Every authentic transformation requires space to unfold. If your consciousness is expanding, but your life is still organized around contraction, if you're still maintaining relationships that drain your energy, still engaging in activities that numb your awareness, still telling yourself the same old stories about your limitations, where can that expansion actually land? It's like trying to plant a garden in soil that's still completely choked with weeds from last season. This is exactly why letting go feels so challenging. It's not necessarily that you want to stay stuck in patterns that limit you. It's that the unknown feels far more threatening than the familiar pain. Think about that one relationship you've maintained out of habit, even though every single interaction leaves you feeling somehow smaller, or the way you've organized your time around obligations that you know aren't truly aligned with your deepest values. Or perhaps it's even more subtle than that, the inner narrative that insists you have to constantly struggle to be worthy, or that real change only ever happens to other people. The resistance isn't a sign of personal weakness in any way. It's simply the natural intelligence of the psyche, protecting what feels known and predictable. Picture someone standing right at the edge of their comfort zone, knowing deep down that stepping forward means that they can never truly return to who they were before. They're not necessarily resisting growth itself. They're simply feeling the magnitude of what it means to allow the familiar version of themselves to dissolve completely. That feeling of standing between two worlds, between the person you've been and the person you're actively becoming, is one of the most vulnerable experiences of being human. This is where you need to understand something that changes absolutely everything. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called superposition, which is the idea that particles exist in all possible states simultaneously until they're actually observed. Your life exists in much the same way. Right now you exist in a quantum superposition, simultaneously living the reality where you remain exactly the same and the reality where you transform completely. The moment you choose to release what no longer serves you, you collapse the wave function into the timeline where transformation is not just possible, but truly inevitable. Look to nature for some much-needed guidance here. A butterfly doesn't emerge from its cocoon by simply adding wings to a caterpillar. The caterpillar has to literally dissolve into an undifferentiated soup of cellular potential before the butterfly can organize itself from that very same matter. The dissolution isn't death in any way. It's simply reorganization at the most fundamental level. Every major transformation in your life follows this same exact pattern. The version of yourself that got you to this point has to become fluid enough for a brand new configuration to emerge. Psychologists have actually documented this very process and have called it cognitive disintegration, the necessary breakdown of old mental structures before new ones can possibly form. What they are describing scientifically is the very same process that mystics have always called ego death or spiritual rebirth. The language might differ slightly, but the underlying mechanics are practically identical. Something deep inside you has to become unknown to itself before something brand new can be born. But here's what makes this process truly sacred, rather than just simply difficult. Every moment of dissolution, every fear that arises as you let go of the familiar, every tear that comes when you release what you thought you needed to be happy, these aren't signs of failure or weakness. They're the very birth contractions of your brand new life. You're not falling apart. You're composting into the fertile soil from which your transformation will ultimately grow. Think about someone who has just walked away from a career that provided security but starved their soul. The first few weeks often feel incredibly empty, almost hollow. Their days lack the familiar structure. Their identity feels uncertain without the role they played for so many years. But slowly, in that very emptiness, something truly unexpected begins to emerge. They notice their breathing differently. They have conversations that feel far more authentic. They wake up feeling curious about the day ahead instead of dreading it. That peace isn't just relief from what they left behind. It's the very first evidence of who they're actively becoming. This is exactly how you can reframe your own process of release. Every ache of letting go, every moment of uncertainty, every fear about what comes next, these aren't evidence that you're losing something essential. They're proof that you are actively making space for what wants to be born through you. You're not destroying your life. You're creating the spaciousness necessary for your life to reorganize itself around what's most true for you. The choice becomes truly sacred when you understand it in this way, because in this very moment, watching this, feeling whatever is stirring in your awareness, you're not just a passive recipient of information. You're an active participant in the field of consciousness, exploring its own potential through your own individual experience. Every time you choose growth over safety, trust over fear, expansion over contraction, you're literally offering your life as a vehicle for evolution itself. Take a moment right now and comment below with this exact phrase, "I am ready to release what no longer serves my highest evolution." Don't just type the words casually. Feel them as a genuine declaration to the quantum field itself. This isn't just social media engagement. This is you consciously interrupting the loop of who you've been and signaling your readiness to collapse into who you're actively becoming. You didn't find this transmission by accident. The very fact that you're still present to these concepts means that your consciousness is already reorganizing itself around new possibilities. Life doesn't place these frequencies in front of just anyone. It reserves them for the ones whose awareness has become coherent enough to receive them and brave enough to act on them. That's you, right now, in this very moment. If this is touching something deep within your understanding, if you can feel the truth of what's being shared here resonating deep within your body, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this specific frequency. Because what we're exploring together isn't just content to consume. It's a transmission that wants to live through you, to express itself as your transformed life. Subscribing is your way of staying coherent with this field of possibility as it continues to unfold. The more often you expose your awareness to these very frequencies, the more stable your new configuration ultimately becomes. Transformation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing reorganization of consciousness that requires consistent coherence with expanded possibilities. By staying connected to this space, you're actively creating the conditions for your evolution to stabilize into a permanent experience rather than just temporary inspiration. Now let's explore something that will fundamentally shift how you understand the mechanics of transformation. Most people approach change from the basic assumption that they need to fix or improve who they are. But quantum consciousness reveals something far more profound. You're not broken and in need of repair. You're an infinite field of potential that has been unconsciously collapsed into a limited pattern of experience. The real work isn't to become someone new. It's to remember the unlimited nature of what you've always been. Think about water for a moment. Whether it appears as ice, liquid, or vapor, it's always H2O. The molecular structure remains constant, while the form changes based on the environmental conditions. Your consciousness works in much the same way. Whether you experience yourself as anxious or peaceful, limited or abundant, stuck or flowing, you're always the same fundamental awareness. What actually changes are the environmental conditions, the beliefs, thoughts, and emotional patterns that determine which version of yourself ultimately becomes observable. This is where quantum mechanics intersects with mystical understanding in the most practical way possible. In the quantum field, particles exist in probability clouds until observation collapses them into specific locations. Your life exists as a probability cloud of infinite potential until your conscious attention collapses it into specific experiences. Every morning when you wake up, you're literally choosing which version of reality to collapse into manifestation through where you place your awareness. But here's what makes this entire process so incredibly subtle and powerful. You're not just choosing with your conscious mind. You're choosing with every single layer of your being, your subconscious beliefs, your emotional patterns, your cellular memory, even your ancestral programming. These unconscious layers are constantly broadcasting their own signals into the quantum field, often directly contradicting what your conscious mind actually thinks it wants. This is exactly why willpower alone rarely creates lasting change. You're trying to override a quantum field that's being generated by multiple levels of your psyche simultaneously. Let me give you a very precise example of how this actually works in practice. Imagine someone who consciously desires financial abundance, but carries deep unconscious beliefs about money being corrupting or spiritual people being poor. Their conscious mind actively visualizes wealth and takes consistent action toward financial goals. But their unconscious programming is simultaneously broadcasting unworthiness and fear of having too much. The quantum field receives mixed signals and reflects back experiences that match the dominant frequency, usually the unconscious one, simply because it operates with more emotional charge and consistency. This is why transformation has to be approached as a full-spectrum reorganization of consciousness, not just a mental decision to think differently. You have to become aware of and realign the unconscious patterns that are actively creating your current reality before brand new possibilities can stabilize into a consistent experience. It's just like tuning a complex instrument. Every single string has to be carefully adjusted to create harmonic resonance. The ancient traditions understood this deeply and developed practices specifically designed to access and reprogram these deeper layers. Meditation isn't just simple relaxation. It's consciousness learning to observe its own patterns without being identified with them. Breathwork isn't just stress relief. It's actively using the autonomic nervous system to access and release deeply ingrained cellular programming. Dreamwork isn't just psychological exploration. It's communicating directly with the unconscious mind in its own symbolic language. But you don't actually need to become a master of these ancient practices to begin this work. You can start by developing what I like to call quantum awareness, the ability to observe the thoughts, emotions, and sensations arising in your field of experience without automatically believing that they define who you truly are. This creates space between your essential awareness and the patterns moving through it, which is the very first step in gaining conscious influence over what you collapse into your reality. Practice this right now. Notice whatever thoughts are currently present in your mind. Instead of thinking those thoughts, observe them the way you might observe clouds moving across the sky. Notice any emotions that are present in your body. Instead of being those emotions, Feel them as energy patterns moving through the space of your awareness. Notice any physical sensations. Instead of identifying with them, experience them as information arising and dissolving in your field of perception. This simple shift from being your experience to observing. Your experience is the very beginning of quantum mastery. When you realize that you are the awareness in which all experience appears, you begin to understand that you have a choice about which experiences you energize with your attention and which ones you allow to dissolve naturally. Now, let's go even deeper into how your transformed awareness begins to reshape your external reality. There's a phenomenon in quantum physics called entanglement, where particles that have interacted remain connected across any distance, instantly affecting each other regardless of space and time. Your consciousness is entangled with every person, situation, and possibility you've ever encountered. When you shift at the quantum level, you don't just change your personal experience. You actually alter the entire web of relationships and circumstances connected to your field. This is why some people notice that as they transform internally, their external circumstances seem to rearrange themselves without any direct effort. Old relationships either deepen into greater authenticity or naturally dissolve. New opportunities appear that directly align with their expanded awareness. Even practical matters like finances, health, or living situations often shift to match their brand new internal configuration. It's not magic in any way. It's simply quantum entanglement expressing itself through the field of human experience. But this process requires what mystics often call surrender and what scientists call decoherence, allowing your old patterns to lose their grip on your reality without trying to control what emerges in their place. Most people actually sabotage their transformation here, simply because they want to direct the entire process from their limited understanding, rather than trusting the intelligence of consciousness itself to reorganize their life in ways that they couldn't have possibly imagined. Consider someone who has been stuck in a career that drains their energy for years. They know they need a change, but they feel trapped by financial obligations and a deep-seated fear of the unknown. From their current level of awareness, they can only really see variations of the same old struggle. Either stay miserable for the security or risk absolutely everything for an uncertain outcome. But when they begin to shift at the quantum level, new possibilities that were always there suddenly become visible. A new opportunity emerges that perfectly combines their skills with their passion. A financial solution appears that they hadn't even considered before. A connection forms that opens doors they didn't even know existed. These aren't just coincidences or lucky breaks. They're the natural result of consciousness expanding beyond its previous limitations, and therefore being able to perceive and attract possibilities that were simply invisible from that contracted state. Your external circumstances are always a perfect reflection of your internal configuration. Change the internal pattern, and the external pattern will inevitably shift to match it. Understanding this process helps you move through it with genuine patience and self-compassion, rather than resisting what's actually helping you evolve. Now, what we've explored today around recognizing the signals of transformation and truly understanding the quantum mechanics of consciousness represents just the surface layer of a much deeper system. While these concepts can definitely shift your awareness dramatically, there's an entire framework of 9 master frequencies that governs exactly how consciousness moves from unconscious transmission to actually becoming the field itself. In my complete guide, Beyond the Frequencies, a Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery, I walk you through the step-by-step practices for embodying each frequency and moving from seeking to permanent being. It's linked in the pinned comment down below. That brings us to one of the most profound aspects of conscious transformation. What truly happens when you start living from your core, your essential nature, instead of from the patterns of your conditioned personality? Your essential nature is the awareness that simply watches all experience without being confined or limited by any of it. It's inherently whole, it's creative, it's loving, and it's deeply intelligent. When you learn to identify with this deeper, more fundamental aspect of yourself, rather than with the fleeting temporary patterns that are simply passing through, then your life begins to express those same amazing qualities naturally and effortlessly. But accessing that essential nature, that core of who you are, requires letting go of the stories that have defined your identity up until now. And this includes not only the negative stories about your limitations and what you can't do, but also the positive stories about your achievements, your roles, your relationships, and even your spiritual progress. All of these stories, whether they seem empowering or limiting, are still just concepts. They're ideas arising in your awareness, but they're not actually what you are. This dissolution of identity, this letting go of who you think you are, can feel incredibly terrifying because the mind often equates identity with survival itself. It wonders, who will I be if I'm not the successful professional, the caring parent, the spiritual seeker, the wounded healer, or whatever specific role has organized my sense of self? The answer to that question is simultaneously nothing and everything. It's nothing that can be captured or defined in concepts, but it's everything that exists beyond the limitations of those very concepts. Living from this place of essential identity creates what appears to be effortless manifestation, simply because there's no longer any internal resistance to what naturally wants to emerge and flow through you. When you're not constantly defending a limited identity, you become transparent to the infinite creativity of consciousness itself. Ideas, opportunities, relationships, and all kinds of valuable resources flow through you freely because you're no longer blocking them with those unconscious patterns of unworthiness, control, or fear. This is precisely what the great teachers throughout history have been pointing to when they spoke about living from divine will, or Buddha nature, or Christ consciousness. They weren't describing special states of being that are only available to some so-called enlightened beings. They were actually describing the natural and default condition of awareness when it's no longer entangled with limiting and constricting patterns of thought and emotion. You can start to access this very state right now by simply asking yourself a very simple question. What genuinely wants to be expressed through me in this moment? Not what you think should happen, not what you're afraid might happen, but what genuinely wants to emerge from the deepest, most authentic part of your being. Then, listen carefully. Don't listen with just your mind, but listen with your whole presence, with your whole being. The answer might come as a feeling, or as a vivid image, or as an irresistible impulse to move in a certain direction, or simply as a deep sense of rightness about something you've been avoiding. This practice of listening to what wants to emerge through you, and then actually following that guidance, is how you begin to live as a conscious collaborator with evolution itself. You're no longer trying to force your life into shapes that your mind thinks are appropriate or acceptable. You're instead allowing your life to unfold according to the greater intelligence that actually created you, an intelligence which knows infinitely more about your true potential than your limited thinking mind ever could. What specific patterns or aspects of your old identity are you feeling called to release right now? Take a moment to reflect on that. Share in the comments what you're ready to let go of as you consciously step into this expanded version of yourself. As you stabilize in this new way of being, you'll begin to notice something truly remarkable. The universe starts to feel less like a neutral or even random environment, and more like a responsive partner in your own personal evolution. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences, become much more frequent and meaningful. The resources you need start to appear exactly when you need them. People enter your life who genuinely support your highest expression, your greatest potential. Challenges arise that, while sometimes difficult and uncomfortable, always serve your growth in ways that you can clearly recognize and appreciate. This isn't because you've somehow learned to magically manipulate reality through some fancy spiritual techniques. It's because you've finally aligned yourself with the fundamental creativity of existence itself, which is always seeking to express more love, more beauty, more truth, and more intelligence through every available form. When you stop resisting this natural flow and start participating in it consciously and deliberately, your individual life becomes a vehicle for the universe to know and express itself in ways that are uniquely and beautifully yours. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond just personal transformation. When you truly realize that consciousness is fundamental and that individual awareness is simply how it explores its own infinite potential, you begin to see that every single person you encounter is consciousness exploring itself through a slightly different configuration of experience. This naturally gives rise to profound compassion, because you recognize that everyone is genuinely doing their best to navigate their own particular pattern of conditioning in service of their own individual awakening. You also begin to see that the major challenges facing humanity right now, environmental destruction, social inequality, political polarization, and spiritual disconnection, are all just expressions of consciousness exploring what happens when it forgets its own fundamental unity and becomes overly identified with separation. The solution isn't to fight these problems from the same level of consciousness that actually created them in the first place. The solution is to embody a higher level of awareness, one that naturally expresses itself as regenerative, collaborative, and loving action. This is why your personal transformation is never just personal. Every single moment that you consciously choose love over fear, presence over reactivity, and trust over control, you're contributing to a powerful field of possibility that makes it that much easier for others to make those same choices. You become like a tuning fork that helps other people remember the forgotten frequency of their own essential nature. As you continue to embody this expanded understanding, your life becomes less about achieving specific, predetermined outcomes and more about simply expressing the inherent qualities of consciousness itself: creativity, love, intelligence, beauty, and peace. You'll still engage with practical matters and daily tasks, but you'll do so from a solid foundation of knowing that you are fundamentally safe, inherently worthy, and always supported by the very intelligence that sources all of existence. This profound shift, from seeking to expressing, from becoming to being, from efforting to allowing, marks the exciting transition into what we might call quantum living, an existence that is organized around the deep understanding that consciousness creates reality rather than being helplessly at the mercy of external circumstances. From this powerful foundation, you become a conscious and deliberate participant in the ongoing evolution of life itself, offering your unique gifts in service of the greater wholeness that you recognize yourself to be. Take a moment right now to breathe deeply into this understanding. Feel how it lands in your body, in your heart, in the quiet depths of your being. This isn't just intellectual information to understand with your mind. It's a living transmission, a powerful, energetic download that wants to reorganize your entire relationship with existence. Let it work on you and through you as you. Now, there's something crucial I need to share with you about the timeline you're entering. Most people imagine personal transformation as a gradual and predictable process, like climbing a set of stairs where each step steadily brings you closer to some imagined destination. But quantum transformation actually operates more like a spiral through different dimensions of possibility. You don't simply move from point A to point B in a straight line. Instead, you spiral through layers of deeper and deeper understanding, often revisiting similar themes and challenges, but always from expanded perspectives. This is exactly why some days you might feel like you're moving backward, or even losing ground that you thought you'd already gained. But you're not actually regressing. You're just encountering the same patterns from a higher octave of awareness, which allows you to integrate and transform them at a much deeper level than ever before. Think of it like viewing a majestic mountain from different altitudes. At ground level, you might only see rocks and trees. From 1,000 feet, you start to see valleys and ridges. And from 10,000 feet, you see how the mountain relates to entire geographical systems. It's the same exact mountain, but your understanding of it is completely different based solely on your vantage point. Your consciousness is learning to navigate these multiple dimensions simultaneously. There's the dimension of your personal healing and growth. There's the dimension of your soul's purpose, expressing itself through your unique gifts. There's the dimension of your contribution to collective evolution. And then there's the dimension of pure being, where you recognize yourself as the very awareness in which all experience arises and unfolds. The path of transformation spirals through all of these dimensions, seamlessly integrating them into a coherent whole. This understanding can be incredibly helpful in navigating what I call the integration phases, those periods of time when the insights you've received need time to reorganize your entire system, both physically and energetically. Sometimes, after a profound realization or a significant breakthrough, you might feel temporarily disoriented or emotionally raw or even temporarily less capable than you were before. But this isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's actually clear evidence that your consciousness is actively rebuilding itself around new truths and new ways of being. Think of it like renovating a house while you're still living in it. There are bound to be periods of chaos and discomfort before the new structure is fully stabilized and you can finally enjoy the improvements. During these integration phases, your nervous system is literally rewiring itself. Your emotional body is releasing old patterns and stagnant energy. Your energy field is recalibrating to hold higher frequencies, and your physical body might experience fatigue, unusual sleep patterns, or even heightened sensitivity as it adapts to processing more light, more information, and more aliveness than it's previously been accustomed to. There's also something truly profound that happens to your relationship with time during this process of transformation. In ordinary, everyday consciousness, time often feels linear and scarce. You're always striving to get somewhere, to achieve something, to become someone different than who you are right now. But as you stabilize in quantum awareness, you begin to experience what mystics call eternal time, the powerful recognition that this very present moment contains all of eternity within it. This shift changes absolutely everything about how you approach your life. Goals and dreams don't simply disappear, but they transform into joyful expressions of creativity rather than compensations for some perceived present inadequacy. You work toward desired outcomes, not because you need them to be happy or complete, but because the work itself is a form of play, of creativity, of service. The future becomes a vibrant canvas for expressing what's already whole and complete within you, rather than some distant place where wholeness might finally be achieved. From this enlightened perspective, every single moment becomes sacred, simply because you recognize it as the only place where life actually happens. The past exists only as a memory arising right now. The future exists only as an imagination arising right now. All of existence is concentrating itself into this eternal present, offering you infinite opportunities to express love, to create beauty, to serve life, and to remember exactly what you truly are. This is precisely where the quantum field becomes most responsive to your awareness. When you're fully present, not reaching toward some imagined future salvation or defending against some projected threat, your consciousness becomes a clear mirror reflecting the infinite creativity of existence itself. Ideas flow through you effortlessly. Solutions to challenging problems appear spontaneously. The right people, the right resources, and the right opportunities all arrange themselves perfectly around your authentic expression because there's no resistance, no hidden agenda, and no desperate trying to force outcomes from your limited perspective. Living in this way requires what spiritual traditions call faith and what quantum physics calls superposition, holding multiple possibilities simultaneously without collapsing them prematurely into fixed outcomes. You learn to plant the seeds of clear intention and then remain open and receptive to how they might manifest in ways that are far beyond what your limited thinking mind could possibly orchestrate. Sometimes what initially appears as a frustrating delay or a significant obstacle reveals itself to be a crucial redirection towards something far more aligned with your true purpose and your deepest desires. This kind of profound trust develops gradually as you accumulate evidence that consciousness is inherently intelligent and that aligning with its natural flow consistently produces better outcomes than trying to control every single detail through sheer mental effort. You begin to clearly see that what you once thought were your greatest failures often become doorways to your most authentic successes. What initially appeared to be painful endings reveal themselves as necessary clearings for brand new beginnings, and what felt like a devastating loss actually transforms into essential preparation for receiving something that your previous level of consciousness simply couldn't have recognized or fully appreciated. The deeper you go into this unwavering trust, the more you realize that your life has always been guided by an intelligence far greater than your own personal mind, even during those times when you weren't consciously aware of it. Every challenge you faced has strengthened some crucial capacity that you desperately needed for what was coming. Every seeming mistake has taught you something essential about your true nature. And every difficult period of confusion or darkness has ultimately been followed by significant expansions of understanding and compassion. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been random. Everything has been an integral part of consciousness exploring itself through the unique vehicle of your individual experience. This powerful recognition brings a deep and abiding peace, because you realize that you're not solely responsible for figuring out your entire life path through mental effort alone. You're simply responsible for showing up authentically in each and every moment, and then following the guidance that naturally emerges from the deepest part of your being. The universe gracefully handles the logistics of orchestrating the perfect circumstances for your continued evolution and expression. As this trust stabilizes and deepens, you begin to experience what can only be called grace, the profound sense that you're being carried by a love that knows you more intimately than you know yourself, and is constantly arranging everything for your highest good, even when surface appearances might suggest otherwise. This isn't blind faith or some form of spiritual bypassing. It's a powerful recognition, based on direct experience, that existence is fundamentally supportive when you align with its deeper intelligence, rather than fighting it with your limited agenda. Consider watching this transmission each morning to intentionally attune your consciousness to these higher frequencies before engaging with your day. And when you share these profound concepts with someone who's truly ready to hear them, you're not just spreading information. You're creating powerful energetic ripples that strengthen the field of possibility for both of you, accelerating the collective awakening that ultimately benefits all of consciousness. But here's what makes this community truly sacred. We're not just individual people trying to improve our own lives. We're actually consciousness exploring its own infinite potential through this very human experience. Every single person who awakens to their own inherent capacity for transformation strengthens the field for everyone else. When you consciously choose growth, you're not just changing your own life. You're actively contributing to the collective elevation of human awareness itself. This is precisely why your personal transformation matters so much, beyond just your own personal satisfaction. Every time you intentionally choose love over fear, presence over reactivity, and trust over control, you're clearly demonstrating to the entire field of human consciousness that these choices are indeed possible. You become living proof that people can evolve beyond their conditioning, that true healing is real, and that consciousness can reorganize itself in ways that seemed absolutely impossible from the previous level of awareness. So, as we bring this transmission to completion, drop just one single word below that captures the energy you're intentionally choosing to embody moving forward. Don't choose a word that simply describes how you feel right now, but rather a word that truly represents the frequency you're consciously committing to live from. This isn't just a simple comment. It's your energetic signature to the quantum field, your conscious participation in declaring exactly who you're becoming. Subscribe, not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent with the powerful field of transformation itself. Because the more of us who remember how to clearly read the beautiful language of synchronicity, who deeply trust the inherent intelligence of our own unique evolution, and who consistently choose expansion over safety, the more the world itself becomes a clear reflection of that elevated consciousness. You are consciousness awakening to its own infinite potential through the beautiful vehicle of your human life. Your exciting new chapter isn't waiting for perfect conditions or complete clarity. It's actively emerging right now through your willingness to simply recognize it, to deeply trust it, and to offer yourself as the clear and open space where it can gracefully unfold. The universe has been patiently preparing this precise moment of profound recognition your entire life. Everything that brought you to this very point of readiness, every challenging experience that strengthened your inherent capacity for truth, and every fleeting moment of breathtaking beauty that reminded you of what's truly possible, it all converges right here, right now in your ability to say a resounding yes to what deeply wants to be born through you. Your vibrant new life isn't just coming. It's already here expressing itself as your powerful recognition of these words, your sincere willingness to feel the stirring of exciting possibility, and your courageous commitment to release what no longer serves the fullest expression of who you truly are. Welcome to the quantum field of your own becoming. Welcome to your new life. Understanding the mechanics of how consciousness recognizes its new configuration naturally leads to an even deeper question. Who is the one actually observing these transformative shifts? When you witness your thoughts changing, your patterns shifting, and your reality reorganizing itself, what is the awareness that remains constant through all of these changes? This brings us to the profound recognition of your true identity as the observer itself, far beyond any temporary form or experience you might be having.